So the cultural nationalism of Savarkar is based on the ideology of Hindutva, wherein he visualizes Hindutva as the central unifying factor that unites Hindus.
Is the first person who has defined Hindutva?
I'm not sure about this.
Okay. And Mr. Shubham, which river divides Balia and Bihar?
Ganga.
Okay. And you have opted political science, right? Can you tell me why Hobbes favored absolutism and how Locke has converted this absolutism of Hobbes into constitutional monarchy?
So it is very openly said that Hobbes was an absolutist for the sake of individualism. So Hobbes believed that absolute rights should be given to the state except the right to life, because according to him he was coming from an era which was depressing, the revolution of 1641, the massacre of 1641. So he was of the opinion that before anything else man must be given a minimum right to protect his liberty, protect his life, and this can only come when state is given absolute power. So under Hobbesian society, man surrenders all of his rights except his right to life, which the state protects for the favor of man.
Okay. And how Locke has converted it into constitutional monarchy?
Locke, could you repeat? Or Locke, sir? So Locke witnessed the glorious revolution of 1680s. So his origins lie from a more optimistic perspective. So what Locke believed, that Locke expanded this version of Hobbes. Hobbes limited it to right to life. Locke expanded to right to life, liberty and property. So he excluded these three rights from the purview of state and gave it to the individual. So individual was the custodian of these three rights. And this was actually the foundation of the constitutional monarchy, with the constitutionalism, constitutionalism, which actually culminated in the form of the rights that are provided to citizens.
Who is the father of constitutionalism?
I am not aware about it, sir.
What is the definition given by Aristotle concerning a state?
I cannot recall it right now, sir.
And how Plato defines a state?
I am unaware about it, sir.
Okay. Plato says the state is a bit larger of individual. And Aristotle says the state comes for the sake of life and will continue for the sake of good life. So that's the definition given by Aristotle?
Yes, I'll give you some answer.
And now Marx says that the state is a prerogative of property class. Is it so?
Yes.
Is it so?
This is what Marxian perspective holds for state, sir.
Do you believe in that?
Not exactly, sir. Like, the modern state cannot be called as a prerogative of one particular class, sir. There has been instances where state has actually favored the dominant class or a propertied class, but then we also see, especially in the case of an multicultural or a multi-diverse society like India, where all political classes have actually been when major political classes have been able to mobilize themselves very successfully.
Okay, so can you tell me what is welfare state?
A welfare state is, in its simplest term, is a state that takes care of needs of its citizens from cradle to grave.
What is the contribution of Sidney Wade, Jacques Bernard Shaw and Sidney Oliver to develop the evolutionary socialism in England, right? At that time, when the Marxism was approaching England, and that was the most favorable condition, for this communist revolution in England. But they have put their Herculean effort to stop it and develop the evolutionary socialism. So, what is evolutionary socialism?
So I am not entirely sure, but if you could allow me a guess, I would like to make it. So are we talking about the Fabian model of socialism, wherein the British socialism or the Fabian socialism, where Fabian societies were created to promote socialism from within, and which would actually act as an alternative to communism, and as an alternative to capitalism and a precursor to communism, sir?
Is it not a constitutional development? You cannot regard it indirectly that they have said that we can develop gradually. It's a revolution.
Yes, sir.
Through constitutional amendment, not through revolution as Marx says.
Yes.
And so that they have stopped the Marxism. They have stopped the Marxian revolution in England.
Yes.
And so that they saved England.
Yes.
Despite the fact that England was a very fertile land for the Marxist revolution.
Yes.
And you must find.
Yes.
Okay, now. So, can you tell me something about RSS?
Sir, Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh or the RSS is a politico-cultural organization that
It's a political or cultural organization.
politico-cultural organization, sir,
Okay.
and it actually originated in 1925 under the chairmanship of Hegdewars, and the organization places the idea of an idea of India which is actually homogeneous in nature, and at the same time the organization is of the opinion that all people who live in the boundaries of India.
Fine. Idea in India is propagated by your RSS, right? And you see it a political cultural organization, right?
Yes, sir.
Two questions are there, very obvious. One, Patel has banned it. Why?
So the organization was banned at the time of independence because it was of the opinion that having such a political or right-wing organization could incite for riots in a country which was already engulfed in riots.
And then what is the notion of their own idea, the idea of India?
So the RSS believes in the idea of Akhand Bharat, or which are the greater India, which comprises the traditional or the ancient parts of Pakistan, Afghanistan, the parts of Southeast Asia.
Fine. And how it differs with the Congress viewpoint?
So the Congress perspective is a status quo perspective, wherein it did not have an expansionary approach towards the boundaries of India, and at the same time the Congress imagined a country which was open and diverse for all citizens equally.
Is Akhand Bharat possible at this point of time?
Sorry, sir.
Is Akhand Bharat possible?
No, sir. Akhand Bharat is practically very difficult or next to
political crisis that is going on in Pakistan. But in India to take it.
So, but then, sir, when we inherit a country, when we inherit a land, we also inherit its problems, sir. So it wouldn't be.
And you have also mentioned just watching football.
Yes, sir.
Why football is so popular? This game is so popular in Europe, but we have but not in India. Why?
So, a lot of reasons, sir. For the fact that Europe has had football as its major sport for a very long period of time. There are many countries in Europe who have done very well at international arena. They have icons, they have geographies and histories related to football. So football is much more than a sport there, it's a way of life.
But what can be done in India to make it more popular?
So there are multiple steps that can be taken. One of the fact that we have a football team and yet we are lacking the awareness is the fact that we need an IEC, Information Education Communication campaign on it. At the same time, the government and the private sector must collaborate and come together for providing infrastructural facilities, providing proper coaching. Then there's also been a talk about recruiting good quality foreign coaches and proper medical facilities.
Okay, and let us move back to our own topic, RSS. Mr. Hegdewar has said when the time he left the Congress and established RSS and said that I have to demolish completely the Congress, no matter it takes 100 years or more than 100 years. And that has been completed by now the Prime Minister. And repeatedly he has said the Congress moved to Bharat. This was the ideology of your Hegdewar, right? So, do you believe it is good for our democracy that we are not having even the 10% of opposition?
So I'm of the opinion that the presence of opposition in a democracy is as important as the presence of a ruling party or a major party. Like opposition exists so that the ruling party does not turn authoritarian. There are checks and balances which the opposition can exercise, and at the same time it gives people an opportunity to be ready for an alternative. The decimation of Congress is very much unfortunate because of the general perception that the people have had towards the party. But at the same time, it does not, having one party in India wouldn't do good for the country, especially in a multicultural and diverse country like ours.
Do you believe that there is a possibility of revival of Congress? It can revive itself?
Sir, I always believe that election and political parties run in cycles. So yes, it will revive itself, sir.
What measures can be taken to revive it on a faster pace?
So there are a couple of measures. First is that the nepotism in the party must be tackled because it's eating it from within. Second, the Congress must actually groom leaders who are actually have some significant presence on ground. And then Congress must pick up issues which actually matter, and not just issues just for picking for the sake of it. So these are the major issues.
Don't you think that their leadership is weak, point one? And point two, when they try to change their leadership, again there is a conflict among their leaders. Like once the Gahlot is approaching, and your Chidambaram is approaching, your Kapil Sibal is approaching, your Ghulam Nabi, your Azad, they all have a conflict among them. So there is no option. If they lead, the Mr. Rahul Gandhi lead, that is not workable. That has not been working for a long time. And when they give somebody else, there is a conflict among the party. So what's the solution?
So the solution is very simple, sir. I believe the hardest choices require the strongest will. So Congress party must actually show the strongest will. It must actually start working on the couple of points.
Can you tell me who one is the best?
Sir, there are many good people in the Congress party,
But who it is?
but I believe that Sachin Pilot is one leader who actually can turn around.
Okay, sir.
शुभम, आपने कहा, अच्छा उस पे आते हैं। पहले तो ये बताइए कि संतोष ट्रॉफी बिहार ने कभी जीती है?
I'm not aware of it, sir.
उत्तर प्रदेश में?
नहीं, Uttar Pradesh did not win Santosh Trophy, sir.
Who organized this trophy? संस्था का नाम बताइए।
So the Indian Football Federation, I would guess.
States
के अलावा और कौन है इसमें पार्टिसिपेंट? अभी एमएलसी के इलेक्शन में मेंबर आप एसएससी काउंसिल के, ठीक है, दोनों जगह बिहार उत्तर प्रदेश हुए हैं। मुझे बताइए कि उत्तर प्रदेश में ये इलेक्शन का पैटर्न कैसे है, उसका बाइफरकेशन बता सकते हैं?
So I have a general idea that there are 100 seats to the UP MLC Legislative Council, and the very recent concluded elections, the voting which was concluded yesterday, BJP, the ruling party, BJP won 33 out of 35 seats.
type of election.
So it's a direct election from the, like, it's not directly by the people, but then it's like the certain criteria are like for 1/3 votes, 1/3 seats are selected by the MLAs, and 1/3 are from the municipality heads and everything, and then 1/12 is from the graduates of 3 years standing. So this is the criteria, sir. And 1/6 is nominating, and there's this 1/6 which I'm unable to recall.
ठीक है, आपने बोला कि नेपोटिज्म पॉलिटिक्स में वो एक प्रॉब्लम का कारण हो सकता है, तो ये तो डेमोक्रेसी है ना। अगर कोई किसी को दे रहा है टिकट और वो जीत के आ रहा है, तो इसमें क्या समस्या है?
So it's a general perception that when families are associated with politics, they tend to do more good for their own families rather than for the people. So there has been, like, for example, if we take there's this family which has had its bastion in Uttar Pradesh, Amethi and Raebareli, and they were winning at times, but then gradually people felt that things are not going good, and so they defeated one member of that family. So this is a general perception that family politics actually inbreeds corruption, actually inbreeds contempt, and centralizes power.
Who you become an
So I'm of the opinion that it's from an individual's perspective, it's always good to see one's own family member doing good, coming up to his own places. But then on a general perspective of public, we see that the public does not very much react openly to such changes because of the above mentioned criteria. Like, people feel that it's more getting into family, it's getting very much centralized, it's getting very much.
I'm not asking what do the people feel.
Yes, sir.
What is your thought?
Sir, I believe that usually there must be a fine line which separates one's family members from one's own activities. And if there's the rise of someone, there are people, for example, let's say Akhilesh Yadav, sir, his rise to an extent can be attributed from the fact that he was away from his father's shadow for a very long time, and yet he had the political acumen to rise as a leader. So this is also a perspective that I have.
शुभम, एक चीज़ ये बताइए कि बिहार और उत्तर प्रदेश में दो ऐसी सांस्कृतिक विविधता बताइए जिससे कि आइडेंटिफाई किया जा सके कि ये किस स्टेट से बिलोंग करता है, या कोई ऐसी कल्चरल डिफरेंस बताइए जिसको कि आइडेंटिफाई किया जा सके।
So one factor would be vegetarianism, where the rate of vegetarianism is higher on the Uttar Pradesh than in the Bihar side, sir. हाँ sir.
Next one.
And the second would be the languages, sir. Apart from the fact that Hindi is a common language, not languages, I'm sorry, about the dialects, sir. Hindi is a common language to both the states.
अच्छा, दूसरी चीज, एक और चीज बताइए कि यूपी और बिहार के एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में ऐसा कौन सा चेंज है कि यूपी थोड़ा सा डेवलप दिखता है और बिहार पिछड़ा?
Sir, I'm unaware about it, sir.